Well, good morning. How are you all today? Welcome to Integrated Preparedness. Today I want to talk about what guns you should have. So grab yourself something, a cup of coffee, and let's sit down and let's talk about this. I know that because this is a gun video, people will say, "Where did you get that mug?" You see, this shot placement is everything, and it's on both sides so that the guy that you're drinking or the girl or the woman that you're drinking coffee with can also see it while you're drinking. Then here we have some of my preferred calibers: 40, 357, 45 ACP, and 10 mil. But you're going to ask, where do I get one of those? And I'll tell you a little bit later where. Well, I'll tell you now. I'll tell you down in the information section down there below is a link to the website stonemont.us. Stonemont.us, and that's where you can get a whole bunch of stuff. You can get my books there. You can get T-shirts there. You can get. We're about to come out with hoodies because it's hoodie season, and then you can get all of our mugs, which they're all cool, but this is the top seller. So you can get that. They come in singles or sets of 4. So okay, let's get at this. Couple of things that I want to say before I tell you about what guns you should have, and I'm going to come at this several different ways. Number one, everybody in the world has an opinion on what guns you should have, and half of them have videos about what guns you should have, and half of them have never carried a gun. 90% of them have never carried a gun professionally, and there's nothing wrong with them having an opinion, but I think you kind of need to understand, where somebody's coming from. I've carried a gun for 49 years. It'll be 50 years in a couple of months. And so I know a little bit about them, and I'm going to give you some good advice. And take it for what you want. Take it for what you want. And I'm going to come at it from 3 different ways. If you can have 5 guns, I'm going to tell you what 5 guns you should have. If you can only have 1 gun, I'm going to tell you what gun that should be. And if you don't have any guns at all, I'm going to tell you about the first gun you should buy. Okay? All right. One more thing that I'm going to say, since this is on YouTube also, I am not going to allow comments. Why is that, Steve? Here's why. Because when I put up stuff, now it's not the same on Patreon. On the Patreon channel, people can comment all they want. But that's a kind of a different community over there. If you want to join us there, and you ought to, the link's down below. Come join us. It's $1 a month. You'll get a lot out of it. When I put anything related to certain things on YouTube, and one of which is guns, I will get just an avalanche of stupid, misleading comments. Okay, and then when I make a video, I speak from my experience, and I try to help people. I try to educate people. I want you to have the benefit, if you're concerned with this, if you're interested in this, to have the benefit of my experience. I'm going to tell you that. However, when I put stuff like this up there, then I'm going to get you. I'll bet you 25% of the comments on YouTube will be misleading from people who think they know and don't. Okay, they learned everything that they know from a magazine or the kid at the gun counter or talking to their buddies and everything like that. And then I just have to spend too much time going and removing all of those comments because I don't want you to be misled. Okay, and I tell you, there are times that I talk to my people on Patreon this morning on one that I've already put up over on Patreon. And I probably put up 3 or 4 things a day on Patreon, maybe 1 a day on YouTube. And I said there are times that after reading some of the comments and having to pull them off, I swear I'm never going to put another one on YouTube. But I am. Here I am. Okay, so here we go. Guns. They are important. They are one of the things that built America. The Bible, the axe, and the rifle, and they are for providing for ourselves, providing for our food, providing for our self-defense, our protection, and if you just want a sport, they're good for that too. Kind of like an axe. Some people use an axe for what it's meant for, cutting down trees and cutting timber and stuff. And other people like to throw them at targets. Whatever you want to do is good, for you. So let me start with, and I'm going to give a brief explanation of each of these, of my reasoning behind each one of these. I'm not going to get into great detail because you don't need great detail. Okay? I'm going to give you as much detail as I think is important. Okay. And then like I say, if you want to ask more questions and things, you won't be able to do it here because the comments will be turned off. Ask it on Patreon. If you can only have one gun, let's start with that. If you can only have one gun, that means you can never have another gun. See, and when I've done this before, the reason, the thing, because I'll put it on and then I'll get all these comments. But if I can have another one, but then, well, no, the question is if you can only have one firearm, okay? If you can only have one firearm, you should have a shotgun because a shotgun can be used for everything, anything in the world. It can be used for home defense. It can be used for hunting. It can be used for hunting everything from birds, depending on what shot you use, from birds to elephants. I don't know if you all have any elephants in your neighborhood, but if you do, it'll work on an elephant. Okay, a nice big 12 gauge. Now, if you can only have one, I suggest a 20 gauge. Now that will surprise a lot of people because the 12 gauge is the granddaddy of the shotguns. Well, there are larger ones, but not in common usage. 12 gauge is the one everybody thinks about. But here's the thing. They're difficult, or they can be difficult for smaller people, women or younger, or, kids. You give a 12 gauge to a 10-year-old, and he's not going to want, or she's not going to want to shoot it very much, right? A 20 gauge is much easier to handle. A 12 gauge is more powerful. It can do a bit more than a 20 gauge, but there's not much that a 12 gauge can do that a 20 gauge can't. Okay, so that's my advice there. That's all the information you need to know. If you want to study it further, please do so. If you don't have any guns, the first gun, my advice would be get a pistol. Okay, now what kind of pistol you get is important. Now, the reason that you should get a pistol first is because you can carry it with you. You can have it with you. A shotgun, you can't carry it. It'll be good for home defense, but you can't be walking. It'll make everybody uncomfortable if you carry your shotgun to work, right? Or if you carry it to the grocery store. So get a pistol. And then that's allowing that you're going to be able to get other guns later on. Okay. But your initial concern should be your own safety and security. And so get a pistol. Now, what kind of pistol? Handguns come in two general categories. Okay, revolvers and autoloaders. This is for the people who aren't familiar with this, and there's nothing wrong with you not being familiar with this. Okay, we're all new at things at the beginning. Okay, everybody's new when they're new, and then you learn more. Okay, so if you're not familiar, a revolver is where it's called that because it has a revolving cylinder. Okay, it's the old cowboy type of gun, or the Dirty Harry type, if you've seen that. Okay, autoloaders is what too many people call automatics. They're not really automatics. They're autoloaders, which means that it doesn't revolve. It's magazine fed. Two basic types. Now, many people will categorize, they'll say, well, there's pistols and there's revolvers. And there are such, how should I say this? Firearm nitwits out there. They get so wrapped up in the terms that if you call a revolver a pistol, they will jump all over the place. That's not a pistol. Well, yes, it is a pistol. Pistol comes from the old pistoleros, and which comes from, is it the French pistola or something like that? Well, the pistoleros back in the Old West, they weren't using 1911s. They weren't using autoloaders. And so this is just one of those ridiculous gun things that there are people that get so wrapped up in this stuff instead of understanding that they should just be able to use a firearm properly. They want to show how smart they are when they're really showing how ignorant they are by telling you that you're wrong if you used a wrong term. Okay, so they're all pistols, but a revolver, it revolves in a cylinder, and an autoloader is magazine fed. What I suggest now, which one? The simplest is a revolver. The simplest is a revolver. Back in the old days, when I first went into law enforcement on the police department in 1974 or three, one of those, I always forget. We had the old 38 Smith & Wesson Model 10s, and then we graduated to the Model 15s. Combat Masterpiece. It was still a 38, but it was cooler looking. And we never went beyond that. I went on to carrying 45 autos when I was undercover, but that was the basic police load at the time. I'm not going to get too much into calibers here because I've already done some on calibers. But when you're looking at calibers, I'll just say this. If you will notice that on this mug, it starts at 40 Smith & Wesson. That's a caliber, okay? That is the minimum that I recommend as far as being an effective round. 38s and 9 millimeters, those very popular 9 millimeters, can they be effective? Yeah, if it hits the right place, shot placement and all, right? If it hits the right place, but they don't do as much damage as the larger calibers, 40, 357, 45, and 10 millimeter. And if you're wanting to defend yourself against a big old meanie, you want as much tissue damage as possible, and these give the tissue damage that a 38 or a 9 millimeter simply does not. Okay, so when you're first starting, you can either get a revolver in 357 or get an autoloader in 40 or 45. 10 millimeter can be a little much for most people if you're starting off, but 40 and 45 is not. A lot of people will tell you that a 9 millimeter is easier to handle. No, it's not. That's just a lie. It's something that people have made up to make themselves feel better about getting 9 millimeters. And too often they tell women, oh, get a 9 millimeter because a 40 is going to be too much for you. You can't tell the difference between a 9 millimeter and a 40. Simple as that. My wife carries a 40. My 13-year-old daughter, when she was 12, shot my 40 and did extremely well. She shot my 45, my big 45 government model auto, and did very well. Do not be afraid of calibers. Okay, now get something. The thing that revolvers are easier to deal with, but the thing that autoloaders have over revolvers is capacity, meaning that you have more rounds in your firearm. Okay. One of the things that people always argue about in favor of their 9 millimeters is they have a greater capacity. You have more rounds in your magazine. Well, a good thing because you're going to need more. Okay, the 9 millimeter simply won't do the damage. I don't care what people say. You will hear people come on and talk about, oh, the FBI uses it and this and that, and the improvement on rounds and ammunition has just been great. That's all a bunch of hooey. It's as if the 9 millimeter was the only round that saw improvement. All rounds have seen improvements over the years. Okay, 40, 45, 10 mil, all those things. And so if you get, for instance, the firearm that I carry, the gun that I carry on a daily basis, is a Smith & Wesson SD40VE. Don't worry about what all that means. It's one of the least expensive guns you can get, and I've never had a problem with it. And that's why I carry it. It's just a workhorse. Well, I carry the 45 or the 40 caliber, and the same gun with a 9 millimeter will carry 16 rounds in the magazine. My 40 will carry 14. Okay, that's a difference of only 2, and that is not going to make a difference in your life. It will not. I don't care what anybody says. Somebody will say, well, those two could make a difference. No, I have the experience. I'll tell you, those people are talking out of their you know what. If you haven't taken care of the problem in 14 rounds, you have bigger problems. Okay, so get a serviceable, effective handgun. Okay, to start with. And now some people are gonna, and you'll ask me, what kind should I get? Pretty much all of the top tier gun manufacturers are great. And by that I mean Smith and Wesson, Springfield Armory, Colt, but they're overpriced. They're way overpriced. Don't get a Colt. Smith and Wesson and Springfield Armory are my favorites. Glock, you hear a lot about Glock. I'm not a fan of Glock. They're overpriced. They're no better than any other gun, even though people like to say they are. They're not. They're not more dependable. And I don't like the way that Glock broke into the American market and essentially built their reputation by, well, I won't get into that. I didn't like their business model, and they came in and they really caused some problems in the American firearms market. They're good guns. Okay, they're just not better than others, and they cost more. So why, right? So that's what if you don't have any gun, start with a handgun. Okay, so now we've covered, if you can only have one gun, make it a 20 gauge shotgun. If you have no guns, just start with a pistol so that you can take it with you and you can be safer everywhere you are. Okay. Now we get to the 5 guns. You can make it 4, you can make it 10, it doesn't matter. But the 5 basic guns that I would recommend everyone have. And that is starting with a .22 rifle. Now, I'm not going to go into depth about, what all these things are. You can find that, hey, there's plenty of people making gun videos on YouTube. Okay. Most of them don't have any professional experience, but, they're enthusiasts, and so you can get information from them. There's nothing wrong with that. They just need to limit themselves to what they know as to what they think they know. So start with a .22 rifle. It's a great way to start. It's the best way for kids to start. It's a great way for anybody who's unfamiliar with firearms to start. It doesn't make a loud bang. It has very little, if any, recoil. It's good for hunting small game, varmints and small game, and it's great for plinking. Okay? And it's just a lot of fun to shoot. And the ammo is cheap. There's no better firearm to start with than a .22 rifle. Everybody should have a .22 rifle. And which kinds to get? Well, there's all sorts of. My oldest son, I still have my old Western Field .22 that I got when I was 14. When my kids turn 13, they get a rifle. My daughter hasn't yet. She's not really into it, but I took her shooting, and I think next birthday, don't tell her this, but I think next birthday she'll get her rifle. My oldest son, I think I got him a Marlin because I like the classic wood stocks and all that. And then my second son, when he turned 13, it was during COVID. It was during all the, or was it? Yeah. You couldn't find a gun anywhere, And the only one I could find was a Ruger 1022 in camo. And I didn't like the camo, but it's all right. Ruger 1022s, great rifles. Marlin's a little more accurate, but not much, not enough for the average person to matter. Okay, just get a .22 rifle. Don't get any of the low priced guns. I will say that. I'm not going to rag on any particular maker. I just stay with the major makers. And then after that, of course, your handgun. Okay, that I've already talked about. After that, a shotgun. Because a shotgun is versatile. It'll do pretty much everything. After that, what they call a modern sporting rifle. Okay, the AR-15. Some people call them a battle rifle. Nah. It's a semi-auto. It's not the military version. It doesn't have select fire, which simply means in the old days it was automatic fire, full auto, and now it's select fire, three shot bursts and things. Um, but get that, it is good for your, how shall we say this? It's a step up for your self defense, for long term defense against anything. Can you hunt with them? Yeah, you can hunt with them. I mean, not long distance. You can hunt the same thing. Well, medium type of stuff. You shoot a squirrel with one, and you're not going to have as much meat as if you shot it with a 22. But uh, you can hunt with them. It's illegal in some states, I think, to hunt deer or the larger animals with them, simply because of the round itself. But it's a very versatile, and you should have one. Okay. And then the last one, the fifth one that I would suggest would be a hunting rifle, and that's for taking larger game. And you might not be a hunter now, but if you're a preparedness-minded person, which is what we call them on here, integrated preparedness. I don't call them preppers. A prepper is just somebody that stocks up a bunch of junk, to me, and I don't mean that derisively. Many people consider themselves preppers, but I figure if you go beyond just stocking and you make it more of a lifestyle, to me, I refer to you as a preparedness-minded person. And if you are a preparedness-minded person, or a PMP, you think longer term. Okay, and part of that longer term could be, well, okay, we're out here on our homestead, or we're out of wherever, and I might have to shoot that deer to get something to eat. Well, then you want a hunting rifle. And they're also good for reaching out and touching somebody at a longer distance than an AR will, if you know what I mean. With this, there's several good makers. Do your own research on this, but my recommendation on caliber would be 308. There will be some who like the 270, some who like 243. Not too many anymore like the 30-06. But there's very little that a 308 won't do. And so do your own research on that. So I think that's about it. If you can only have one, make it a shotgun, make it 20 gauge. If you are starting out and don't have any, start with a pistol. And if you want to know what 5 you should have, like I said, 22, and make it a semi-auto. They're all very dependable. Don't have a one-shot 22. A 22 rifle. Also, 22 revolvers are fun to shoot and cheap to shoot, but that's off topic here. So, pistol, 22 rifle, shotgun, AR-15, and 308 hunting rifle will do everything in the world you need to do. Now, if you have more people in the family, I suggest that everyone have every one of those. Makes sense? Okay. Well, for the kind of beginners out there who can seem, I know all the gun stuff can seem very overwhelming if you don't know about, just like anything, if you don't know about too much about it yet, it seems overwhelming. It's really not that difficult. People will try to make it seem difficult because if they can, it makes them seem smarter, right? Don't be misled by that. Just do that, and I hope it's been helpful. And like I said, if you have any questions, I'm turning off comments on this. I'm just not going to put up with the stupidity I get on YouTube when I talk about guns. But come over and join us on Patreon. You'd get this and a lot more, and you'd enjoy it. It's only $1 a month. And if you're serious about preparedness, you ought to be, right? And if you want to know how to get this, isn't that beautiful? Remember, you can get this individually or sets of 4. If you get them in a sets of 4, we have a real nice discount on it. And people, a lot of people, I would say that probably more people are buying them in sets of 4 than individually, and that surprised me. But they're getting them for friends or to give a gift, and what a great thing to have your friends over and for cards or just sitting around and give them all their beverage in one of these, they're going to say, man, that's cool, And it also reminds you of the pistol calibers that I consider to be effective right there. So if you want these, come to our website, stonemont.us, named after Stonemont, right? That's what my books are about and all that. And there you have it. You all have a good day. I hope that's been helpful. And remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.